Hello, I am the Lady Ms. Vagina Jenkins, and it is time for queer astrology. So previously on Time for Queer Astrology, we covered all of the basics, I would say, of learning how to interpret your natal chart as a beginner intermediate astrology student. And I'll link these videos up here so you can check them out. But yeah, in the first video, we talked about finding your big three, finding your chart ruler, understanding where the light is in your chart. And in video 2, we talked about night versus day charts, the 4 quadrants, the modes and the elements, and a little bit about essential dignities. And then in the third video, the most recent video from last week, we talked about the houses, the signs, and the planets. So if you have been following along at home, you have now a basic understanding of how to go about interpreting your natal chart. I hope. And so in this video, I thought to apply that information that we just talked about. I want to interpret my natal chart. So let's get into it. So here is my natal chart. Take a moment to orient yourself. And as we go through this chart, I'll ask you sorts of questions about how to find things so that you can practice your skills if you want. So the first thing to look at is number 1, is this a night or a day chart? Where is the sun in this chart? Is it in the night half or in the day half? Yes, it is a night chart in that the sun is below the line of the horizon that runs directly through the middle of the chart on the horizontal axis. And then what is my big 3? Do you remember what the big 3 is? The big 3 in astrology is your sun sign, your moon sign, and your rising sign. So yes, to my sun being here in the 4th house. You can see that my moon is in the 9th house. And you can see that the sign that rules my 1st house is Sagittarius. So I am a Sagittarius rising. So my big 3 is Sagittarius rising, Pisces sun, Leo moon. Also, if you need a refresher about all of these symbols that you're seeing in the chart, I'll definitely be sure to link in the info box below to an article that explains all of the glyphs and symbols in astrology. This is the chart for a Sagittarius rising, Leo moon, Pisces sun. That's my big 3. So if we know that I am a Sagittarius rising, what is my chart ruler? How do we figure that out? Well, we look at the sign that is in the 1st house, the rising sign, Sagittarius, and then we remember our planetary rulers from the Essential Dignities video. Planetary ruler for Sagittarius is Jupiter. And so Jupiter is my chart ruler. If Jupiter is my chart ruler, then that means I want to understand all of the facets of like what Jupiter energy brings to the table so I can understand sort of my guiding ethos through life. And for advanced points, I might even look at where is Jupiter in my chart to understand that, that might be a particular area of focus for me in this lifetime. For me, Jupiter is sitting in my 6th house in Taurus. This is editing me that realized I did nothing to explain what
being a Sagittarius rising or being a Jupiter ruled chart means. I record these videos at like 3 o'clock in the morning and my brain is not the clearest at that hour. But yeah, a Sagittarius rising experience is the experience of being ruled by a mutable fire sign whose planetary rulership is Jupiter. So mutability, going with the flow of fire, my passions and interests and connection to spirit, as well as being ruled by Jupiter, and expansiveness, an expansiveness of thought and emphasis on freedom. And then where I look to see where Jupiter is placed in my chart, I find it in the 6th house of daily routines and health practices. And so an expansiveness of thought, an emphasis on freedom is a foundational aspect of my daily life. And with that 6th house being ruled by Taurus, there needs to be a fixed earth quality to my daily routines as well. I need to have solid foundational routines that are rooted in material comfort, tangible comfort.
So we divided the chart along the horizontal axis. Now let's mentally divide the chart in half along the vertical axis. We've created 4 quadrants. Which of the quadrants is most dominant in terms of number of placements there in my chart? Yes, 2nd quadrant heavy, and that is the experience of the private other. And so yes, internally focused or introverted sort of energy, as well as not so much society focused, but focused on my family, but focused on my chosen family, my ancestors, my queer and trans community. Yeah. 2nd quadrant babe. 2nd quadrant babe. Look at this little section that is in the middle of the chart here to talk about what element is dominant in my chart and what modality is dominant in my chart. Can you tell what my dominant element is? Is it fire, air, earth, or water? Yes, fire. She is passionate, she is driven, she is creative. And can you tell what my dominant modality is? Cardinal, fixed, or mutable? Balance between fixed and mutable energy, yes. And let's look at just the big 3 placements to figure out essential dignities. Are any of my big 3 placements in rulership or in detriment? So let's look at Sun in Pisces. Pisces is not ruled by the Sun. Nor is it the Sun in its detriment in Pisces. The Sun would actually be in its detriment in Aquarius. So close, but no. Let's look at the Leo moon. Is Leo ruled by the moon? No. But it's also not in its detriment. The moon would be in its detriment in Capricorn. So, these are not well-placed planets that are like in rulership, but they're also not in detriment, so neutral. I will point out one of my placements though that's in detriment, my Mercury in Pisces here in the 4th house. Mercury is in its detriment in Pisces. It would prefer to be in its ruler signs of Gemini or Virgo. My experience of being a Pisces Mercury has been really difficult in that it seems like it's hard for people to understand my everyday mundane communications, and also people think of me as wise. My Pisces Mercury experience has been very much rooted in Mercury, the mental landscape, how I think, my ideas, my insights, are so connected to emotions and connected to intuition and connected to something greater than ourselves, the spirit realm. And so I think when I am allowing myself to fully be in the Pisces part of my mental landscape, that I come across as wise. But then when I am insecure and talking about more mundane matters, it is confusing. It's honestly confusing, and people seem to willfully misunderstand me, and it gets to be very frustrating. But yeah, that is one way that the experience of a planet in detriment can show up in our charts and our lives. So let's look at the houses for just the big three placements. We know the first house is devoted to our experience of self, our identity, sometimes our appearance, and Sagittarius on the first house, Sagittarius being a mutable fire sign ruled by Jupiter. Mutability, an identity built on going with the flow of fire, passions, following my passions, and Jupiter, expansiveness. And so what that has looked like for my life is the emphasis on feeling free. Freedom is something that I am passionate about, and being able to do what I want when I want is very much a guiding ethos for my life. Let's look at my next placement, the Sun in the fourth house in Pisces. So Sun shining a light on, and also our vitality. So definitely an area of focus for me is my understanding my family of origin and those patterns of behavior over generations. Being in connection with my ancestors, super important to me, and it definitely is something that contributes to my sense of vitality and what I want to aim towards in this world in terms of like walking the path of life towards a goal. Definitely understanding and being in connection with my ancestors. Sun in Pisces, a mutable water sign, also ruled by Jupiter and Neptune. Going with the flow of my feelings and intuitions and expanding that, and also being led by my dreams and the spiritual space. Let's then look at my Leo moon in the ninth house. The moon, one's emotional landscape and what you need to feel emotionally safe in the world. In Leo, a fixed fire sign ruled by the sun. Fixed, committed to fire energy, passion, and that spark. And the sun, vitality, warmth, being seen in the world. And the moon, the emotional landscape. So a lot about my emotional landscape may need to feel affirmed by my big philosophies, my higher learning, the way that I apply knowledge in the world. It's also said, I find it interesting that it's also said that this is, the ninth house is astrology, because astrology is such a applied, such a sphere of applied knowledge. You know, you have to collect all of this data about patterns of the stars versus the seasons on Earth versus human psychology and behavior versus historical patterns and cultural patterns. You have to collect all this data and then be able to apply it. And so it makes me feel very much affirmed in my pursuit of astrology that I have a moon and a Saturn, the planet of hard work, sitting in the ninth house. And I want to be affirmed for that in my Leo moonness. And so yeah, I'm gonna stop there. I'm not gonna get into all of the other planetary placements, but I just wanted to show you that technique for navigating the chart in a more holistic way. I think a lot of times people look at a chart and may become overwhelmed because there's so much information there. Or maybe we'll just start with the houses and signs, but I think that there's so much more foundational information that we can use to understand the chart holistically and also understand the chart in the context of what our personhood, what our experience of the chart is like. So yeah, that's what I wanted to share in this video. I hope that came across. Anyway, this is my chart. This is me vulnerably sharing information that is very, very personal to me. So thank you. Thank you for receiving it. And thank you, as always, for watching and making time for queer astrology. Bye.